Okay, welcome back to another episode of Accountants Are Sexy, Change My Mind. Today I have Lucy Cohen with me of Mazuma, who is a very busy lady and she's up to all sorts of stuff. So I really do appreciate you spending the time on this podcast today, Lucy. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. No problem at all. Nice to be here.
You've been in my periphery for a long time because you have a very interesting brand to me. And as I have to go and research companies for marketing purposes, Mazuma pops up all of the time. So before we get into what Mazuma is, could you just, for those who don't know you, just explain a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I started Mazuma nearly 17 years ago when I was 23. So I was a mere babe and had all the confidence of a 23-year-old. Wasn't jaded by life yet. Yeah, wasn't jaded by life yet. And it started really because we predate cloud software. And it really started because I saw the way that my family interacted with accountants. So they were all creatives, actors, dancers, musicians. And so my big rebellion was being an accountant, getting a proper job. Like, oh, God, you're not going to join a dance troupe? Oh, my God. So I saw the way they interacted with accountants. And there was no good way for those businesses or those individual sole traders to get good financial information on a regular basis to help them run their lives. I saw this kind of go to an accountant once a year, have the stress of the bill, have the stress of the tax bill, no relationship, a lot of onus on the business owner to do a lot of the legwork themselves. And I just thought there has to be a better way of doing this. So we literally came up with, put it all in a purple envelope and we'll do everything else. And that has always been our USP and that has always been what we do. So we take on all of the data entry for clients, even now, because a little bit kind of like if you want something done properly, just do it yourself sometimes. It's just quicker. We let business owners get on with what they get on with. We do the data entry so that we know that it's right, and we calculated that it actually saves us time rather than letting the end user do the data entry. It actually saves us a significant amount of time in terms of and high level expensive time. So an accountant having to unpick something, figure something out, redo work, that's expensive as a business to run. So actually it works out far more cost effective to just produce it in-house.
Right in the first place.
Yeah, we very much applied a manufacturing business model to a service-based business. And part of that analogy in manufacturing is that if it's cheaper to create it yourself than it is to import it, then that's what you do. So ultimately, that's what we kind of invested in the machine of how we create stuff at Mazuma. And it all started with a purple envelope, and not for any reason other than purple envelopes were the cheapest ones I could buy in Staples because they were on sale and I had no money. So that's why it ended up being purple. That was it.
I love the honesty of that. Like one day I had no money. To buy a envelope.
We had like £100 and we used to have to share a laptop. So yeah, that's how it worked.
That's amazing. I think there are lots of people who will listen to this who would not necessarily think about doing bookkeeping first. They wouldn't necessarily think that that's the value of an accountant. But the more I learn about this industry, and I'm relatively new to this industry, I'm marketing, certainly not an accountant, but the more I learn about it, the more I realize that it is the analogy, if you put good stuff in, you will get good stuff out. And for my
rubbish in, rubbish out.
Yeah. Like if for my own bookkeeping experience, I'm rubbish. I'm really, really bad.
But why would you be good at it? You've not trained in it. Why would you be? Yeah. I think that there's been, I'm going to throw some shade now. I think there's been a massive disservice by some vendors in trying to almost convince, and I get it, they're trying to sell a product, sell it to the market. But I don't like this kind of idea that you have a accountant's partner channel and then you're trying to convince the end user to do all the work when they're not qualified in it. I'd much rather see that effort go in it. You can buy the best drill in the world. Doesn't make you a builder, does it?
Absolutely. I had Ash Gibson on here, who's a very lovely, lovely lady. And I challenged her on that. So I wanted to say, so who was it that came up with the advert to tell everybody that you could just do it yourself? Who's the brains? It wasn't her.
No, there are things we should not be doing ourselves. Probably most haircuts, taking down supporting walls in our houses, gynecological procedures, and bookkeeping. I think there's things that are not suitable for DIY, if I'm honest.
If I'm going to put two in a category, it's gynecological procedures and bookkeeping.
Absolutely, yeah, very similar, very similar.
So I think that was a bit of a brainwave for you, especially like 17 years ago this started. There has been a whole technical revolution. There is a massive push towards everybody being as hands-off as possible almost. But that's not your USP, and that's not where you're heading.
No, and in fact, we're doing more bookkeeping. But in the theme of the technological revolution, we've built technology that does it for us, and not by getting the end user to do it, but by streamlining, using AI, using OCR, and we can basically onboard a client in about 10 minutes, including full anti-money laundering, full kind of due diligence in that sense, get them onboarded and get them essentially doing their bookkeeping, but just put it in an envelope and we do everything else in about 10 minutes. So we can do that kind of so quickly. Previously, before we had this kind of technology, we'd say that, and we're still very fast at doing this sort of work, we'd say that a full envelope or a full month's worth of work, so an envelope is 1 month of work per client per month, full bookkeeping, bank reconciliation, VAT, payroll, advice report, management accounts, all that kind of stuff would take us 37 minutes.
Wow.
We've built Maz app and it now takes 12.
Oh, wow.
So we've built a machine that will still, the bookkeeping is still controlled by accountants. So, your expensive piece of machinery, look, you're not putting someone who's just passed their driving test into a Formula One car, right? This is kind of how I think of this. We've got a Formula One car. You need proper drivers to drive that with all the will in the world. I once did a track day and was horrified to find I don't like driving fast at all. I'm like pottering around this little track, like
Mr. McGee,
feeding the wheel. Like, it's not for me. I drive like a nana. I want to drive slowly and comfortably. I don't want to get anywhere quickly. So same thing. That's the same thing. So that's why we built it. So we've developed technology now that is, well, in the first instance was for us. So just about us being more efficient. But now we're going to be looking at opening it up to let other people plug into it and use it, because it's so efficient at getting stuff done and takes away that pain point of my client won't use receipt capture tool, my client won't use bookkeeping, my client can't do it, I've trained them 4 times on it and they still can't do it. It takes that pain out for accountants. So I'm all about sharing this wealth.
Like there is definitely this push towards using technology. There's definitely this push towards streamlining all client touch points. But there are so many clients out there still, like, I don't know what to do, and they don't use it often enough to become familiar with it. So like for myself, I'm pretty tech savvy. I can jump on stuff and understand most things, but I will never ever in a month of Sundays remember how to allocate stuff. Like my brain just doesn't work
because
that way.
You don't do it all the time. It's like anything. If you're learning a language,
it bores me.
yeah, that's it. It's not sexy, is it? It's not fun sitting around doing your bookkeeping. So it's like anything. You use it or lose it. And our team sit there all day, every day, handling data. If you're a business owner and you're a graphic designer or a builder or a public speaker or whatever it is you do, you're amazing at what you do, but you don't have to be amazing at the bookkeeping stuff. So that's kind of like our whole ethos, really. And going to the marketing thing, I love a bit of cheeky marketing. So I like to play with things. It fulfills my creative part of my brain.
Well, which is probably making your family happy as well, right?
Yeah. Thank goodness. Oh, she's got some creativity. Phew, we haven't raised someone who's got not a creative bone in her body.
Yeah, I have an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old about to turn 20, and the generations are different, aren't they? I mean, their rebellion, like yourself, is to be just normal human beings.
They don't
go out partying, they don't go out doing all the crazy stuff I did. They're just like, I just want to get a job and live my life.
Have a nice life. Yeah, more power to them. Absolutely.
Weirdos. So, as I say, Mazuma comes up all of the time. And you must have handled so many tough decisions along the way. You've got niching, pricing, should we be doing this? Should we be joining the technical revolution of accounting? So what have been your major challenges in this business journey so far?
Oh, goodness. There's a question. Right. So first of all, I think it's really easy. I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very happy to be very vulnerable. It's quite easy to kind of look at, I suppose, what we do at Mazuma, and I kind of describe us as like we're a 17-year overnight success. What we're doing now looks incredible to the outside world, but it's taken a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears to get there. And it's a lot of the time been very, very hard. Even now, on a day-to-day basis, I have to have very difficult conversations or make very hard decisions about where we're going to allocate budget, who's who are we promoting, who are we not, all that kind of stuff. These are hard decisions to make, and the strategic direction of the company, because we want to stay ahead of the curve. But I hate innovation for innovation's sake. Innovation for innovation's sake isn't innovation. It's just nonsense, isn't it? So
it's fixing problems that don't exist.
Make up a new button for someone that no one wants and no one cares about. When we start, as the world became more electronic, we had so many people saying to us like, "Oh, you should have an app." I was like, "What would it do?
Yeah.
What's this app going to do?" Because at that time, something like kind of 85-90% of our clients were still paper people. They were still accessing us via putting literal paper in an envelope and posting to us. That percentage now is more like 24%, but that's still not an insignificant market there. So for ages, we didn't have an app because we didn't need it. Now, we could have built an app and spent money in, it can show clients their tax codes, or they can do a calculator. They're not going to use it. Like, what is the point? I hate pointless things. I hate having something, and it's so easy to be convinced to spend your money in areas that you don't need.
Yeah, this is the whole tactics before strategy. It happens in marketing all the time. It's like, oh, this new thing is out. Let's go and do this new thing. But they haven't actually considered why. Why are you doing the new thing?
Yeah, and does anyone care? Does anyone want it? What is your end product, and how do you make that the best version of your end product that it can be? And the rest is all just confetti.
Yeah.
And that's what because we've always bootstrapped, we've never had, tons of investment or loads of spare money. It's always just been, we've grown at the rate of cash, essentially. And so because of that, you have to make the right decisions. And of course, the cost of learning is sometimes you make the wrong decision, it costs you money, but never to a point where it's critical. And we give ourselves the space to fail, so we test and measure, and it's just always about every decision that we make is about, right, where's the value here? What's this going to bring us? Is this going to make the boat go faster? Because if it's not making the boat go faster, is there any point doing it?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer to that question is no. And even if it's something I really like and I've fallen in love with, we just don't do it. And
they're the hard ones. They're the really hard ones. It's like, I've had this amazing idea, but it's actually not really going to help us achieve anything.
No.
So when let's kind of move on, because I want to make sure that we got all three topics in. So I've told you what the topics are. So I want to talk to you about Accountex. We're running an Accountex special at the moment.
Okay.
I'm very excited about it because last time I was there, every time I'm there, it's just the energy is incredible.
It is, yeah.
What are you up to at Accountex this year?
So I'm there with my several hats on. So I first of all will be there as a speaker. So I'm doing every year. I'm like, I'm not going to do many this year. I'm not going to be on the stage all the time. I think I'm doing like 7 different talks. So I'll be on stage a lot.
Yes.
And then
your tall soothers, have you?
Yeah, last year I was on the honey and lemon last year. I was like, and try not to party too hard on the first night, because I do love a little after show party, and I love a little boogie, and I need to just protect my voice. I tend not to go out the night before.
Yeah, didn't you say that you were going to attend all 3 parties?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I'll just make an appearance at all 3. I will be speaking, but also I'm there with ProNation, which I'm one of the founder members of. That's a community for accountants and bookkeepers, and it's a place where we meet once a month. We have a big vault of information, templates, all the stuff you'd expect from that kind of community. But it's myself, Will Funnell, and Carl Reeder heads it up, and basically that came about because we talk to each other a lot anyway. We're mates, and we just kind of and then Martin Bissett, who's involved as well, kind of brought us together and was like, It'd be nice if we did this with other people involved, wouldn't it? Like, this is quite good, this is good
These chats
chat.
are good fun.
Let's get other people involved. And
Aw.
and that's really nice. So we built building a really nice community of
Yeah.
accountants and bookkeepers. And I think what differentiates us is that it's a real safe space. We have some very vulnerable conversations. It's full chat and house rules, obviously. We have very vulnerable conversations. We don't tell you how to run your firm. It's all about helping people find the right path, find that value, find what works for them.
Yeah.
But I'm, like I said, I'm very happy to share all my mistakes. So every week I'm like, by the way, guess what I did? Guess what I did 5 years ago? That was a disaster. And I think there's a power in hearing other people who've
Yeah.
been successful talk about that.
I love that when you spoke earlier and you were talking about your business and giving yourself the space to fail.
Yeah.
That's really important. And it's so misunderstood as well. People are like, well, why would you want to fail? You don't want to fail, but you are going to. So you have to just take the lessons from it and say, well, I'm going to move on now. But that's
I fail every day.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing as a business owner to get over, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, statistically, you're going to fail more than you win. It's just how it goes. You're going to,
unless you don't try.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll definitely fail if you don't try at all. I think all my ideas are brilliant, but of the ones that kind of stick, there's like less than a 0.1% that actually go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how it should be, because if you think about ideas and experience, I always think about it like a pipeline. You can't just have one idea and that idea and follow it all the way through. You need to have lots and work them and pipeline them like your sales might, and then the one that comes out at the end is the one that you stick with and you carry forward. So that's kind of failing, that space to fail, and you're not being too hard on yourself. Something didn't work out, never mind. You annoyed a client, okay, well, it happens. Someone left you a 1-star review, it's going to happen. Like, you can't beat yourself. Don't beat yourself up about it, but also don't judge others when you see it happen to them, because what goes around comes around. And it's really easy to be judgy when you see someone else having a hard time or something not gone well for somebody. But let's not forget that there will be a time when it also doesn't go well for you, and you have to just, ride it out.
Do you know the thing with the accounting community, which 99% of the time is probably the best place to be in the world, by the way?
Oh, it's great. It's such a good, and it's changed so much over the last 10 years. Like, when I started out, it wasn't this space, and I love that it is now. It's such a nice space to be in.
Definitely. But there is this very small percentage, and it seems to be more of a trend than a personality thing, that says, oh, if that client annoyed you, disengage. Like, straight away. Like, the reaction, it's almost a reactionary thing now. Like, if they're not going to do this, disengage. And I just think we need to, and this is a Will Farnell thing as well, we need to be a bit more human about this, right? Because the people we're dealing with are people.
Yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
that there is, like, maybe the technology has pushed people in a way to say, if you don't fit with me, then goodbye, straight away.
Yeah, I think there's two things here. I think the first is that ideally you're not working with clients that aren't your best fit client, because every firm or business has its own niche or what it does well. I'm not going to take on a client that turns over £5 million and has 170 staff, because it does not fit our model. And that client would not work with us. They would not be satisfied with our end product. So my pipelining means that we just don't take that kind of stuff on. So on one hand, you want to make sure you're only working with your best fit clients. Where you do have poor fit clients, and that might be because you made a mistake in the sales process, maybe their business has changed, maybe your business has changed, is that we call it offboarding, is that you do offboard them, because actually you have a duty of care to your client base to make sure you have an ethical duty of care to make sure that they have the best representation. If that is no longer you have to hand them on to someone who better fits them. But this whole I just don't like the cut their jib stuff. Yes, all right, you know what, it's your business, and if you don't want to work with somebody, you don't have to. You don't need a reason. But if you're going to run a successful business, you have to learn to sometimes work with people that you don't like, and that includes staff sometimes. We're not all going to be best friends. It doesn't mean you can't work together. So I think it's about kind of splitting that out and
rationalizing it.
rationalize it, be human about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you're not going to like the way someone speaks to you. Maybe they're a bit short with you.
Yeah.
All right, you know that about them. Just don't take it personally.
Yeah, I think if it's the first piece of advice someone gives you, if you say this client has been a bit like this, and the first piece of advice you're given is disengage, don't listen to it. Stop and think, rationalize, and work through it. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
and why have they been like that with you? Did you do
Exactly.
something that genuinely wasn't great? In which case you own it, you apologize, you fix it, and you move on.
Yeah,
If they are a poor fit client, then you have options about where to put them.
completely. So going back to your Accountex talks, then you're on stage a lot.
Yeah.
What are you going to be covering?
Oh my goodness. All kinds. So I talk a lot about kind of people and culture element of things. So I'm doing one with Alona Mortimer-Zika from Iris about female leadership. I'm
Brilliant.
talking about I'm doing one called Size Doesn't Matter, about how firms of all sizes have very similar problems. I'm
Mhm.
doing one which is about getting out of your own way. So we have, as accountants in particular, I see a lot of people kind of over analyzing and very much getting in their own way with things. So I'm doing one about that. I'll be doing one with my fellow pronationers, Carl and Will, about when you get something wrong, sometimes it's the right thing, and how do you handle that? So yeah, and others. So yeah, rising tide effect. I'm talking about with Dan Richards. So yeah, loads of
Wow.
great stuff. Things that genuinely, they're all topics I genuinely find fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to miss you. It's going to be hard to avoid
Oh, you'd
you.
be sick of me. You'd be, oh God, it's her again. Oh God, she's always there. Get rid of her.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. I think all of the things that you said just hit bells with me. So I like they're topics that I would like to listen to. So I'm
Cool.
hoping to catch a few of them.
Amazing.
Um, so there is another topic that jumped out because when obviously I looked at your profile, I was like, yes, I'm going to ask Lucy to come on the podcast. And then I saw your hashtags. I was like, I'm definitely asking because the older I get, the more feminist I
Mhm.
become.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, and when I was younger, I just thought everyone was equal and it's all fine. And it's like, and then you just slowly catch up with the world and you
Mhm.
realize there are some like, injustices going on.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what's your perspective on feminism?
I'm a strident feminist. Um, I'm I speak a lot about it. I write a lot about it.
Mm,
Um, I was born in '83, so the world's changed a lot since I was a kid. And I started a business when I was 23 as a woman in a very male dominated
yeah,
space. And I think that was kind of the moment where I started really realizing that woman meant other.
mm,
Um, it was men and other.
yeah,
Because I used to get asked, is it your dad's business?
yeah,
Are you the PA? Never an assumption that I would have run a business where male peers of a similar age wouldn't have been asked those questions. And I just started noticing that I got treated a little bit differently to men of the same age
yeah,
and position to me. And then you get interested in it and you read, and you kind of, once you notice it, once your eyes are open, you're like, okay, now I see it. Like, it's a bit like when you're trying to buy a new car, then you see that car everywhere. It's
yeah,
that you start noticing it. And even now, if you look at things like the Rose Review from last year, only 1% of VC funding in the UK goes to female led businesses.
mm,
1%. If you
mm,
go into ethnic minorities, like, it's even more depressing. 99% of venture capital funding in the UK goes to male led businesses. So anybody who sits there and goes, oh, but you've got equality in the West, shut up. No, we haven't. And the reason, I'm ranting now, here we go. The reason for this,
this is why you're on here.
I absolutely hate this thing. And I understand where it comes from,
Yeah.
but it comes from a position of unintended ignorance. Is when you
Yes.
get people saying, oh, but shouldn't it just be best person for the job? I'm like,
Yeah.
right. Yes, of course it should be. Obviously, you don't hire someone who's rubbish just because they
Fit the
tick that
criteria and tick a
box, fit
box.
criteria. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but if you don't start trying to push for certain demographics and representation, your brain doesn't go outside and think about hiring anybody who doesn't look like you. And
Yeah.
it's not on purpose. No one's doing it. Very few people are doing it on purpose. There are some people who do it on purpose, but the majority of people are well-intentioned and don't do it on purpose. It's just a very natural human thing. We tend to hang out with, talk with, have friendship groups, hire people who remind us of us. And that's why we have the venture capital funding situation the way it is. Most of the wealth is held by men. Those men are venture capitalists who sit on boards with other men who are VCs, who then have businesses walk through the door that remind them of them, and they invest in them. The bar for women to get access to it is so much higher, and we have to answer more difficult questions and be, be unflawed just to get through that door, whereas a man in the same position doesn't.
Just have to ask.
Yeah, and it's. I spoke to somebody yesterday, so we're doing looking at doing a raise this year, and looking at where the business is going to go. And I spoke to somebody yesterday who was like, "Oh yeah, I just did some I raised some money. Like I did some calculations on the back of a fag packet. Yeah, I've raised a couple of million quid." And I was like, I wouldn't. When I started my business, I wouldn't have even known how to, where to, had a network, all that kind of stuff. So it's about looking outside of yourself and your situation and going, right, am I somehow perpetrating this kind of cycle that means that people don't get let in? And if it means I have to go, right, I want to have 50% of my board to be women, so I'm going to go out and go, I am looking for women to join my board. There's nothing wrong with that if your board is currently 100% male, because you've recognized that you want to have good gender representation, and that means that you have to go out and look for it, because obviously what's coming to you naturally isn't great. And it's in the same way that when you're recruiting for a role, and if you say, oh, we can't recruit anybody, we've tried, and we all the candidates we're getting through are rubbish, I'm like, well, then there's something wrong with your recruitment process.
Definitely.
And so you have to look at yourself and go, oh, but no women want to do this job, or no women apply for these roles. Why?
The language that you're using. We've had both Heather Elkington and Kaylee Graham.
Yes.
Got her name for a second. I've had them both
awesome.
on. Yeah, but talking about these subjects from different angles, and it comes back to your unconscious bias.
Yes.
So what are you putting out there? What language are you using? How accessible is your working environment?
Yeah.
There's a whole heap of stuff that goes into it that you would never consider, because you're what's the term you used? It's not ignorant, it's unconsciously ignorant. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. So a good example of this is when we got a new office building, we were planning layout and where to put stuff and all the rest of it. And the contractor said to us that it doesn't have a lift in it. It's 3 floors, but doesn't have a lift. Like, okay, so where are you going to put your wheelchair access? And the office is downstairs. And I went, oh, and it just hadn't crossed my mind, because I currently don't have anybody working for me who's in a wheelchair. And I felt awful, because I was like, oh my gosh, but that's it. Unless you experience it or live it, you don't think of it, and it's not your fault. You just have to be willing to, when you're challenged, go, okay. And it's really uncomfortable if someone goes, actually, I think what you said there isn't right, or I think actually you should be doing this. It's so uncomfortable to go, oh, maybe it's me.
Maybe that's right. Yeah.
And that's such a hard thing to do. It's so uncomfortable, but that's how we learn. And I think I did a podcast with Kaylee a while back, and she used a brilliant phrase, and she said, it's okay you're going to be clumsy at this stuff sometimes, and that's okay, because at least you're trying.
Yeah, exactly. I had on the Uprising, so I ran a very small event. It was an online event about uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable just topics to discuss. So there was racism, there was men's mental health. We covered a whole heap of things, and it's about just picking up tiny fractions of knowledge, so you can just make the world a better place. Bit by bit. Doesn't need to be overwhelming changes. We don't need to revolutionize everything we do, but we just learn and improve and tweak along the way.
And a lot of it doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
So if someone says,
I want to you often.
I want to be referred to as whatever, or I'd like you to use this pronoun, or I'd like you to, maybe not use that word when you refer to whatever. It doesn't hurt you not to do it. Yeah. Does it? It's of no consequence to you. It doesn't affect you. So if someone says, my preference is to be called this, you go, yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah. I liken this, and this is, I think this helps people recognize, because I had somebody say, I don't understand this pronoun thing. Why do we need to do this? And I was like, well, how about this? When a woman is unmarried, you call her Miss.
Mm-hmm.
When she is married, you call her Mrs. And when she is divorced or widowed, you call her Ms. Mm-hmm. That is a choice.
Yeah.
That's all it is this is how you refer to me. And that's what pronouns are. They're just a way to refer to somebody. That's it.
It's all it is. And sometimes, and it is new language, and you have to learn it, and sometimes you might get it wrong, but that's fine. That's fine. At least you're trying.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who I know people who like to use they them pronouns, and I will occasionally get it wrong, and they're like, it's all right, don't worry, doesn't matter. But as time goes on, I've just got better at it, and it's almost become second nature. And interestingly, I noticed that my younger staff naturally default to they them until they know otherwise, which I find quite interesting. It's just naturally in their language until they know otherwise. And I'm like, that's very interesting that they're just doing it without thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. And they them still confuses me, and I will be open and say it does still confuse me, because it is a multiple. It's what's the word? Plural.
Yeah.
And it does still confuse me. So if anyone wants to help me understand that better, then I'm all for it. But there are questions, and it's okay to have questions, and it's okay not to know everything. And the more you become comfortable with that, the better it is.
Yeah, and to just be like, I'm learning. I'm learning this stuff. Help me. And I don't know anybody who has come from that position who's been rejected, and said, I don't know anybody who's said, help me. And it's
unless you go and put it on some daft thing like Twitter, and then you just get attacked.
I mean, I'd stay off there. But and it's conversations that we have, like when we had our some of legal agreements in the business, and our lawyers drew them all up, and all of them said, we're going to use he, and just assume it applies to all genders. And I was like, absolutely not. Both myself and my business partner are women, and we are she. So you will change all of the agreements to say she, please, because you're talking.
And we will just assume that they're she's.
and I was like, but that's you're talking. I mean, how unbelievably lazy! It's a Control F, isn't it? Like find and replace. And our lawyer, who was female, was like, oh my goodness, I'd never even thought of that. I was like, it's making it appropriate for a female-led business. You've now got a bunch of contracts here that say he all the way through them. I was like, we don't need to do that, do we? Like, so even better, let's make it all gender neutral.
It's small changes like that will incrementally just change perception over time. Yeah. And I think that's important for most women to recognise. Stand up for those tiny things. You don't have to be ranty.
No.
Just stand up for it and make the small changes, and then the world will change.
And notice them when they happen. It's okay to... I had a letter saying "Dear Sirs." I'm like, there is no sir here. Like, I'm not a sir.
Typically they come from India, and that's how they show respect. They don't actually know whether you're a male or a female.
That is, so there's a cultural thing, but I think it's interesting, and it's something that I'm quite happy to talk about. And the world's changed a lot in the time that I've been in business, and I think in the next 10 years it's going to change again. We're seeing better representation of women at C-suite, and I'm really excited to see how that filters through into the kind of recruitment pipeline for companies, and seeing more flexible working, seeing men taking longer parental leave being normalized, all this stuff. I'm really excited to see the impact, that positive impact that's going to have on society and things like social mobility, which Definitely. I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, 100%. And then maybe it will filter into our governments as well.
Maybe.
So I would really like to see that happen.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be PM. I think it's not a job I fancy.
No, not a job that I fancy either. No. But, I'll champion someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just not for me. It's just,
Totally. We're already over time. So there is one more question that you have to answer for me. What is the sexiest thing about accountants?
Oh, that's a great question. So the sexy thing about accountants is definitely the impact they have on their clients and the world. Everything boils down to those numbers. Ultimately, it's how it all ticks, how we transact, how we barter, how we trade, all that stuff. It's all about those numbers. So the sexy thing about them is that they're the ones with all that knowledge and how to do it. So they help. They literally run the world.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And by the way, at Accountex, I am doing a panel on impact, on the impact that accountants have on their clients, and then what impact their clients have on the world as well. Because you have to recognise that.
Yeah, it's a chain, isn't it? It's what I say to my team all the time. I'm like, you're not just doing accounts for somebody, you're helping them be successful in their life and achieve their goals. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, you are a massive part of this economy.
Absolutely.
Right, Lucy, that is all we've got time for. So I really appreciate you coming on. That has been splendid.
Oh, you're so welcome. Anytime. I've had a blast. I could talk all day. So yeah.
Last thing, if I direct people to your LinkedIn, is that where you hang out?
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn. Have a little stalk. Give something a
Go
like.
to Accountex.
All helps. Go to Accountex. Come and see me at Accountex. I'm everywhere apparently. So yeah, come and see me.
That's awesome. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.